right, we're here. I am Deshaun. Thanks for joining. I'm going to explore a little bit with Spring Boot 3, Milestone 3. We had office hours. I had office hours with my good friend Dan a little bit ago. Actually, it started on Monday. And on Monday, we had a question. Dan had a question. And we explored that a little bit. So I'm going to pull that up, this one. And hopefully this works. Let's take a look here. This is what it looked like. We had a little, yeah. Dear Dan, thanks for the email. I'm Delvin from Indonesia, junior software engineer. I really like all content, YouTube channel especially, but realize I'm a newbie. And the question was a third-party API here to my backend Spring Boot. I'm going to call it this message initializer to some DB. I'm using RabbitMQ, and then from that DB to another backend and to another API. Like, hey, what does that look like? A video about that. That'd be cool. The idea that we had was let's both take a run at this. Dan showed his on Monday during office hours. I was exploring and I didn't finish as Dan started over the weekend. But what I'd like to do is just kind of walk through that. What does it look like? And what does it look like using Spring Boot 3? So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to use Maven, Java, except I'm going to use this Milestone 3. I'm going to change this name just because I don't really need to. Let's just call this the message oh, yeah, let's call it initializer. I'm going to remove those. I don't think that matters. And what should I add? I was doing functions, so I'm going to add Spring Cloud. I'll do functions. I always like to add the actuator just default. I plan on doing something somewhere at some point. I'm also going to add Webflux. Oh, and Rabbit. I just need the Rabbit. I think that's all I need. Let's start with that. We can always make changes later. And let's get started. Generate that. Cool. I'm going to download, have fun, initializer. Let me go create a project of some sort. And yeah, this show is all about, just seeing what is it like to be a developer? What are the things that we think about as we're doing stuff? Let's jump in there and unzip the project. Right, and then I'll jump over and open that up. Actually, I could do it this way. Oops, scoop. Might be easier. Fantastic. I will try to keep up with the comments, but I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really see. So bear with me. Here we go. Yeah, this is what we're starting with. I chose Java 17 and Spring Boot 3, the milestone. Cool. I don't think there's anything I want to change here, but we see we've got some new versions. The Spring Cloud version is milestone 2 as well. And let's get started. I think what I'm gonna do first, let me get back to my application. I'm gonna look at what did I wanna do here? I wanna connect out to this public API. So let's go and grab that first. Let's take a look at what that is. Again, start from nothing. Whoops, I didn't want to search it. Let's just go run it. Well, that works. Let's grab this base URL and we're just gonna turn that into a property. How's that? Um, yeah, initializer, uh, that third party URI. How's that? Cool. And then I know that I want to do a web client. So I'm just going to throw a bean in here. And I think that's just a public web client, web client. And I think what I want to do is, yeah, just return client create with that base URI, which I'm going to have to uh, make my constructor. I'm going to rename this while I'm here. I want this to be my initializer. And I'm going to take in a string, what I call it, uh, initializer dot third party URI. Oops. Yeah. Initializer third party URI. Cool. Uh, that's what I need. And then give myself a holder. Oops, I didn't close this off here. Does that look right? That initializer. What's not matched? There we go. Cool. And then I'm just going to create it for that base URI. Yeah, so far so good. Hopefully, does that screen look okay? If there's any problems or you can't hear me or can't see me, let me know. What is this trying to tell me? Initializer public. Oh, I refactored it, but it didn't rename the file. Let me do that real quick. Excellent. So now this is just how I normally work. Let's take it for a spin. Sure, I'm gonna pull down all my stuff. Let's just do this way. We run. I'm a developer. Just friendly reminder, I'm on a 16 gig laptop. Like this is not anything big fancy. Um, I could be doing this on a Raspberry Pi, just the same. All right, so yeah, hey, it's up and running. That's cool. But now I want to do more. I want this thing to um, trigger. I want it to call this third-party API. So now I've got a web client. Now, how am I going to do that trigger? I'm going to make, in this case, I'm going to make it um, a function. And because I've already done this, right? Let's go back to that history. This particular API, this is just a public API that I don't remember where I even pulled it from. I think I did a Google search, but I found this API that gives you sunrise and sunset information based on a lat long. Simple, right? Our talk wasn't, the requirements we're not super specific on what we're doing. So this is just an example that I pulled out of the air. And this one needs a lat and long to be passed in. So this is going to take a, we're going to call it a lat. I think they called it LNG. LNG. And yeah, we'll go ahead and return the string. Sunrise, sunset. So this is the thing that we're going to do. We're going to create a function that when you call it and you pass in a lat long, you're going to get back a string. Let me scoot back over here. So this is our function. Let me move this guy over here. And when you call that initializer, it will make a call to that public API, and then it'll pull it down and store it in RabbitMQ. Cool. So what's this? What does that look like? Let's go make a record. At LNG. Why is my function not pulling in? Oops, whoops. I don't have my, I don't understand my keyboard on this one. Why is this keyboard not working? There we go. Yeah, my lat long, and that just has a string. That's the lat, and a string. That's the long. Latitude, longitude. I think that's it. Oops. Let's go take a peek. LNG, LAT. Yeah, that'll work. So now I've got a function. Well, that function's got to do something. So let's do something. When that call comes in, return. I'm going to grab that input. And from that input, I'm going to do some stuff. I don't think I need to do a whole lot. It's raining outside. But I am going to return a string. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, hey, I want to call that web client. And with that web client, I want to get this URI. And what I'm going to do is on that URI, oh, I'm going to pass in that lat long string dot format. Like this question mark, right? Because I grabbed the whole, this is my base. This is where I need to get to. This part is the part that I got to add. So I got to add that question mark lat and long. That question mark lat equals, I'll plug that in, and long equals, and we'll plug that in, and we'll get that value, oops, here from input dot lat and input dot g. So that's there. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab that value, like make it happen, and we'll say, hey, body to mono. Cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we want to do something with that. That response. We want to subscribe to that response. I'm new to this whole reactive stuff, so some of this is from memory, some of it's not. And when we subscribe, we want to get that result. We want to do something with it. And what we're going to do there is we want to Rabbit. Right, we want to dump it into Rabbit. Well, I haven't done anything with Rabbit yet. So let's circle back here. We're taking a pick. We're going to call that. This is a function that's calling that to API, and we want to subscribe to that response. When we get a response, we want to then dump it into Rabbit. So now I got to go and make sure that I have Rabbit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize. Again, up here in my initializer, I want to get a Rabbit template. And hopefully, oops, hopefully I can do that. I might have to peek and make sure I got the right stuff. Oops. Right, Rabbit. Hello. All right, so I'm gonna get one of those on init, and I'm gonna do something with it. All right, so I'm planning on getting one of those with my constructor, and then I'll just keep on going. So now I've got one, added it, and now I want to do something with it. So here I want to say, hey, Rabbit template. I want to take what I got from here. I want to take what I got from here, and I want to pop it onto Rabbit, but I got nowhere to put it. So I need um, a topic exchange. These are Rabbit concepts. We're going to do this up here. Let's do it this way. Uh, I want to make it configurable. Topic exchange. I'm gonna do it slightly different. I'm gonna do that here. Let's grab it from an initialization. We're gonna call that a string. I should maybe call it Rabbit. No, we'll just call it topic exchange. Keep naming. So let's go make one of those. Sure. And we'll call it here. Episode, what is it? Episode 70 something? I don't remember. We'll just call it code. Spring Boot code. And then we'll go back and we'll grab it. We're just thinking out loud. Again, it's probably a good idea to design and think these things out first, but this is also kind of how I do things normally. I'm sure we've all done it. Initializer dot topic exchange. Did I capitalize it properly? So topic exchange, cool. So then I can get that value from init that. Why doesn't it like that? What am I doing here? Oh, I put my thing in the wrong spot. Yeah, I get nervous about live coding sometimes, but I'm practicing. I'm getting better. I hope. It said, "You got this. Thank you so much." Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work. We're gonna do this. So yeah, thanks for joining. I appreciate you. I will try to keep my eyes on the comments, but like I said, I don't have my glasses, so I apologize in advance. So now I've got a topic exchange. I also need a queue and and how I'm going to bind, right? That routing key because I'm going to use that Spring Cloud Streams binder. When I start up, it's got some defaults. So let me make one of those too. Routing key. routing key, and I'm going to pull that in from my application values. Right, these are the things that are going to change between environments that I know that, hey, if you take this example and you want to run it, um, yeah, you might not want to use the same API, but it'd be nice to have an example to use where I can kind of plug things in and go get that the the easy stuff done. So my routing key, what should we call my routing key? Um, yeah, Spring or let's beautiful code. Good. Uh, Office hours. That's where this whole thing started. Okay. Uh, so now I've got that, and let's initialize it. Oops, I didn't do the important parts, but let's fill this one in. I know what it is. Initializer. It's a routing key. Having those things spelled the same. Cool. And now let's make sure that we initialize those. The topic exchange and the routing key. Cool. We're just pulling in values. Hopefully, at some point, you've got uh, config. My good friend Brian has an example of using config server to bind config server values into a Kubernetes cluster as a config map. And maybe we could extend this and do that if we have time. So here, Rabbit template, I know that I'm going to do it here, this convert and send, and I know that I needed those values. So the first thing that I needed, it's telling me, here, let's go back and do it this way. Convert and send. No, first thing I want is the exchange. I'm using this method down here. Topic exchange, and then I want I believe it's the routing key. Yep. Let's make sure I can fit it on the screen. You can see that. Ooh, whoops, I forgot my period here. Okay. And then what do I want to put on there? I want to put on there uh, that result. This guy. All that I need. So hey, I'm closed. So what I've done, I'm checking my work up here. Like hey, yes. I said hey, we're gonna this function call that API, pass in those values, and grab that mono. And then we're going to subscribe to that call. Like when that call happens and I have a string, I have a response, then I want to just take that response, throw it onto this topic and exchange running on Rabbit. I think that's it. But I'm returning a string. So I'm just going to say, hey, like we did it. Right. So, let's print that off. Like, hey, like we did it. That message, message should be sent to the processor. And let's just return like, hey, maybe. And I think that's it. Cool. So smooth. Again, just a quick review. Um, hey, that was 20 minutes. I think that's all that we need. What we did was we identified an API. We created this part, and we did this as a function, a Spring Cloud function. And this is where we implemented that function. Let's take a look at our POM. That function should be served up. I also have an actuator. I used Spring AMQP. This, so I'm wondering this part because I'm pretty sure I have a Spring Cloud function webflux, but I think this is okay. Let's just see if it works. Right. I may have more than I need there, but again, I'm using the latest milestone. So let's just see if this works. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. How do I? Yeah, get back in there. Get back in there. So let's see if this works. We're going to do a Spring Boot run. That should just run my test, do all my stuff, and Spring Boot by default. Uh, with our starters, it should start up on port 8080, and it's up and running. And that function here, sunrise, sunset. So what I should be able to do is I'm using HTTP Pi. Oh, I should probably point out the fact that I'm doing this. You're like, hey, like Rabbit. Who's got Rabbit? I just stood up a Docker image of Rabbit, and Spring knows the default port. So when I added the Spring dependencies from uh, the initializer, it says, oh, hey, you didn't configure any Rabbit, so I know where to look. I know those default ports, and that's a great experience. Like, I shouldn't have to plug in all those things that are just default all the time. But because I have this ability to pass in configurations and override those defaults, yeah, I can change it as I move from local to dev, stage, prod, etc. So I did that. And I also have HTTP Pi installed. HTTP Pi, trying to get better at using that, which is similar to curl, but it's got some other bells and whistles. Uh, so I'm just looking at my notes over here. This is like, hey, make sure I'm doing the right thing. HTTP. I'm going to pass in some information. Wait, I'm up and running, right? Yep, I'm up and running. And what that's going to be is I need some details. Yeah, I'll use those values for now. So I want to pass in JSON. So if you remember how to do JSON, remember how to format JSON stuff off the top of their head. Lat is going to look like this. Zoinkity zoink. And then I also need the LNG, which looks like this. I don't know where that is. That was just the example from there. And then, cool, I'm going to send that to port 8080. And I think sunrise, sunset. Fingers crossed. Internal server error. And that's okay, because we're going to learn. We're going to figure out what happened here. So it says something happened. String cannot be cast to lat long. Class cast exception. That string can't be cast to lat long. I passed in. I assume that when I'm doing this, this is my record. My record has those two elements. I expected to be able to pull in this lat long, but it's saying, hey, we can't do that. And why? Why? Let me go back and take a look and see if I did anything different. I don't think so. I'm going to look at another example, and I want to see if I set up my dependencies in the same way. Actuator and view. Yeah, I did the binder. Let me try this. Let's see what this does. I looked at that funny where I have a Spring Cloud function web when I could be doing Spring Cloud starter function web flux. Spring Cloud starter function. And I don't know if I need anything else. One of the other things that I have this other example, again, it should be simple. I said, hey, I want to do these as a rabbit example. So let's just try that. Let's see if that makes a difference. But what I expected, what I expected, we get these message handlers by default. Uh, so these things, as we're using these dependencies, uh, I expected that there was a message handler in place that knew how to convert that input into the record that I had there. So let's clean it up and see if we can run it again. Or maybe I did something wrong. Oh, well, I can't clear it up. So if I'll jump back and check. All right, cool. If you are in that explore phase, this is a good time. This is a great time. Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 are going to be out later this year. And that's what we're doing. We're taking them for a spin because I did this example already and it works. And it's exciting that that milestone has the things that I need for a totally valid uh, example. And if it works, yeah, great. I should be comfortable with it. So this is up and running. Let's try to run our test again. That LNG. I still got a internal server error. And I'll bet it's the same. It says, hey, I don't know how to convert that. String can't be cast to lat LNG. Do I need to do anything that says, hey, no, I don't. So why is that not being converted? And I don't know off the top of my head. So let's just go take a look. We're going to figure this out. Cool. Here's the function that we're dealing with. Let's just do this. Let's just bring in that. No, I can't because I need to know. I need to grab the bits. Do I need to set up that? Do I need to pass in that type? Yeah, it's clearly not getting the message handling done properly. And I'm looking for a clue. I'm not getting one. Hmm. That should be good. And I'm clearly passing in that string. And it doesn't have a message handler for that. So I'm looking to see what could possibly be happening on that call. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Uh, in another example, let's do this one that we did earlier for office hours. Simple change. Let's break open our terminal. Uh, I will show this is very similar, but I did it with different dependencies. I started uh, at one side and I was making changes. And it says, look at your string you are passing. Should that be equals, be there for lat? Let's take a look. I will take a look. Thank you for that help. I'll throw that up there. Look at the string you're passing. Should that equals be there for lat? Thanks. I'll take a look. Uh, let's push that out. And that string that I'm passing here. Oh, look at that. That is super good eye. See, teamwork makes the dream work. Still internal server error, but that was definitely a good catch. And what did it say this time? Okay, let's rerun that so I can get that quickly. double check. Hey, lat is this. Oh, and that's not supposed to be that way. I got a colon there. That's supposed to be a comma, isn't it? I'm up. See, it wasn't really that we did it wrong. It was that success question mark. All right, cool. Thank you so much for the help. I would have like kept on blindly trying to make changes to my code when it was my test. It was not a valid test. Thank you so much. Teamwork makes the dream work. So now, yeah, we made it this far, and yeah, now the other part here is, hey, we should see our message. What does it say? It says shut down signal channel. This method close no exchange Spring Boot code in that host. So something it says, hey, I'm trying to do this thing, but I don't see that channel, and that's okay. So it created that connection, and then it says, hey, I'm done. Also, we see that I have my third party message. I did send it. So it tried to connect and send that to that RabbitMQ. So cool. This should this is kind of what we want to do for that first phase. This is it. I wanted to like go reach out to the API. I pulled that data down. Uh, well, actually, I should probably validate it. Let's take a look and see that we actually got that information. I think I can do that here. Let's show that um, just result, right? Uh, no, not there. Um, response from API. I convert and send that result. Uh, what's a good way to like spit that out? Um, well, let's just do it in the processor. Let's do that. Let's do that in the processor. I think this is working. I'm feeling pretty good. Uh, and let's be done. So now here's the cool, fun part is that I'm done working on this part of our exercise, and now it just kind of sits there. So what I want to do is I want to try something here. I want to close this up. I don't plan on doing a whole lot more with this. So now what I want to do is I want to do Spring Boot build image. Here's Frost. We're using the latest Spring Boot 3, milestone 3. Let's see if we can get an image. This is going to take a little bit of time. But yeah, there'll be a Docker image. It's pulling down the build pack to get that image. And because I'm using Spring Boot 3, and because Spring Boot 3 has some cool stuff in it, I'm going to make one other change. So we're doing it live. It's okay. When I go to Spring Initializer and I use Spring Native with uh, yeah with these other versions, let's change our version over here. I think I can do it with this one. I just want to take a peek at the Palm. In the Palm, in our Spring Boot um, plugin, Spring Boot plugin. Nope, here. It adds this native image true because Spring Boot 3 has these cool things. And yeah, I'm totally not practicing this before I'm doing it. We're experimenting. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to see. So I have an image here. Let's look at my Docker images. Uh, Initializer. I've got an image here that is 296 megabytes. Cool. That's got everything. It's got the uh, Netty because it uses Webflux. It's got my application. It's got all the runtime. It's got everything it needs to go and stand up this function and accept calls. Now what I want to do, I want to experiment. I want to go on my Spring Boot Maven plugin. and I want to add some configuration. I'm not going to do this repackage classifier route. I'm just going to say, hey, I still want to use that build pack, but this time I want a native image. And what does that mean? Deshaun, what does that mean? It means I don't want to run the JVM inside of my image. I want it to be statically compiled using Graal VM. So let's build it. I'm going to do, I think I can do a name here. Is it name? I'm going to go look at another project real quick and see what I did there. GitHub, reboot native I. Make sure that I rename the artifact each time. And yeah, it didn't look like that. So this time we're going to call it Initializer static. Fair enough. Let's see what it thinks. And let's just run the same command, build image, cool. This time when we build the image, I said, hey, build pack, give me a statically compiled image. I expect to see the Graal VM process happen in this output. So my fingers are crossed. I haven't done this before. Stay tuned. Let's grab the build pack. Go check this up. So what is the Graal VM version used? Great question. That is all up to the build pack. So by default, the build pack, I believe, is going to be using Liberica, but we can go and take a look. Let's go. That is a great question. Paketo.io, and I go to my Java build pack, and in that Java build pack, I have these options that are way down at the bottom, I believe, from memory. There we go. So by default, I think I'm getting 21.3, being here's my native image build pack version. And I believe I'm getting the Belsoft Liberica first. I think that's what it starts with. And I only know that because I did this same process for the ARM architecture. So yeah, I think that's what it's doing. But it's also configurable. So if I scroll down a little bit, I can actually pass in just like I was doing here. Whoops. Just like I was passing in here, I can also pass in my versions. I've got a set of variables that I can use. So this says, oh, and I know already what it is. Image, it was a rebuild, unable to contribute native image layer. Let's take a look. I couldn't register complete reflection. So maybe I need to do something extra, and that's okay if it doesn't work. I'm going to peek and see if I can get some clues. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on here. This is the normal path that I would take if I was using Spring Boot 2.7. And I was just doing an experiment here. So, okay, that didn't work. I'll come back. I'll circle back on that, and that's okay. So I'm going to comment out these sections here and just know that I'll come back to that later. The idea is that when I'm done with this thing, I want to be able to let the rest of my team use it. So I'm going to create an image. I don't want them to have to go and do the build process again. I'm going to go ahead and build it for them using a build pack. So they've got a known consistent version of that application, because if they're building it on a different box using a different Docker container or some different way, yeah, we could have different results by using that build pack and sharing the image that image that's created from the build pack, I have consistency across my team when I'm doing development. So we did that. So now I'm just gonna like pause that one and I'm gonna go and start this next that next piece. So we built this, we called a public API, we got a thing, and we threw it on to Rabbit. Now we want to process that. So let's stay here. We're gonna go and create another one, Maven. But again, we're using the 3.0. We can get rid of that. And this is our processor. I think I did Java 17 last time. And what we're going to do is, this doesn't need to be a Spring Cloud function. This is just a listener. So all I need is like Spring Cloud stream. And actually, I don't even need that part. I think I just need I can take this one out. I think I'll get all the things I need. Um, oh, of course, I want to add my actuator. Oh, but I am also going to, from this processor, I'm listening to RabbitMQ for that message on that, uh, on that queue. I'm listening, and when I get a message, then I'm going to call out to that other API. Right? He says, "Hey, down here, like my back end," but then I want to call out to that other API. Cool. So that's what we're doing, and this is just a made up example, but it kind of goes through that process. So here in my processor, I'm going to grab convert, transform, or whatever I need to do, and then I'll call it to some other API. So I am going to need Webflux uh, for my web client. Um, do I want to add anything else there? I don't think so. Let's go and we'll build it from there and we'll see. Hopefully I answered that question. And it's always great to see you, Alexander. Thank you for joining the show. And I'm absolutely open for feedback. Like, hey, is this similar? I'm happy to learn. I'm happy for help. Uh, the processor, what I call it? Oh, downloads. Open that up. Excellent. All right, we got some stuff. Right, that's nice. Hey, we got processor. We're gonna do very similar things here. We can take a peek at our palm. Things look good. So let's scoot, and I'm gonna go back to the other project that we just built, and I'm gonna grab those same properties because we're gonna use the same uh, stuff to connect. I need these ones. So we have the same exchange and routing key. And let's throw those in. I think this one should be, oh, it's going to also need a web client. So we can just reuse this bit. Because we're eventually we're also going to have another API. So I'll need that. So we can throw in our bean. So our bean gets initialized. We got to give it that same base URI. And this time, our processor's base URI is the URI for this guy, where we're going to send that information after we've done our work. So I'm just doing a little bit of copy and paste, right? Who wants to rethink all of that stuff? I should probably rename those properties since we're not in the initializer, we're in the processor. In fact, I don't really even need that part, right? Just for clarity. This third party, we can leave that blank for now. But yeah, we're gonna use those same. So let's go in here. Topic exchange routing key, and we're gonna initialize this guy with similar. Also, URI and that base URI. And then these are all those values that we're pulling in. I'm going to go copy paste so I don't do any more typos, because who wants to do that? We've had enough of those for today. So let's just grab an example here of the work we just did. Here, base URI, but I'm taking off this, and I'm going to call this just the data sync URI. So this guy in, and this is the topic exchange. And this one is the routing key. Get it to sync. All right. So let's go make sure, hey, this is our sync URI. Oops. And that works. Cool. We haven't figured that out yet. We're making progress. We've got initializers. We were grabbing stuff from our config. And now this base URI is the one that I just passed in, right? And I realized that this way of initializing services, for me, it's kind of like in practice. But the idea is I want these things to be initialized during with the constructor, right? We used to have the auto-wired approach, but I want these things to be initialized during the constructor. And that's going to help when I'm doing other things like testing. It's going to make testing this a whole lot easier, which maybe we'll get into that later. So, hey, we've got those things initialized. And this, I'm going to configure this a little bit different, right? I'm not initializing things. I want to listen for changes. So I'm going to do this idea of a message listener, a listener container, I think is the way that we explain it. So I'm going to go up here and I'm looking just at another example on how to format this. Where I'm getting all these examples from, right, where I'm learning is the Spring guides, right? They've got great first pass on a ton of this stuff. And the documentation is set up in such a way that it's super duper easy to find what you're looking for when that easy case doesn't work for you. So I'm going to, I don't even think I need this. We're going to listen. So I was over here. Now I'm going to set this up in a slightly different way. I'm going to make, this container listener. So let's do it this way. It says public, maybe public. It says listener container, and I'm going to feel my way through these configs. Is that right? Hello? I can't see which one I'm pulling in. Did I pull the right one? Looks like it. Excellent. So I'm going to feel my way through setting this up again. Right, this is happens. The developers do, I think. Um, yeah, we're good. Uh, let me check. Can we use functions model for processor? Um, can we use the functions model for the processor? Uh, yeah, it kind of ends up being like that with the container listener. This, oops, the way that we're doing this, um, similar, right? And I'm still wrapping my head around this paradigm shift. Uh, but yeah, let's take a look. Let's see what it looks like. So here I'm going to do the simple message container or listener container. What do I need? I don't think I need anything. Um, set the connection factory. I want it to wire it up proper. Given to me. Container. Mm, do I need the queue names? I don't think. Let's try it without first. Set the message. Listener. Now, this means that I've got to make this a message listener. Cool. So now it's going to say, hey, you haven't implemented that method. You can't be a message listener just yet. So let's go implement that method. And the only one I need to do is on message. Cool. And that message, what am I going to do with it? Take a look here. When I get a message, oh, I'm going to call over here. So when I get a message, I'm going to do web client. I'm going to say, hey, let's take the data that we get and let's make that data body. Let's see what happens with that. I know what I need to do. Cool. Um, we're going to that message. Uh, it. I think. So how do I get connected? So before in our first one, I had that RabbitMQ template that said, "Hey, here's how I'm going to connect." Well, now that I'm listening, I need to make sure that I'm connected uh, to that same thing. And what I did in this earlier example, a different example that I'm picking at, is I connected those pieces, but I'm wondering if I really needed all that. Yeah, oh, for my connection factory, I definitely need to know. Um, but I wonder if I can do it here where I'm listening and I get that connection factory. Um, I just want to peek at. No, I'm not going to do it that way. What I was going to do is like, hey, is there a way for me to say, hey, instead of doing the connection factory, can I do the maybe if I did it like this? I'm just exploring right now, trying to better understand what this looks like. There you go. Host port, virtual host, username. So I could plug all these things in. Cool. Right. And I know that it's going to use the defaults for that. But what I also want is on that listener container. Mm, I'm wondering. Whoops. Uh, um, yeah, we're cool. Yeah, I still need to pass in the same configs. I want to make sure it's connected to the same rabbit topic exchange and routing key like I have here. So I have those values here. That was our topic exchange. That's our routing key. Uh, but I need to use them. So I'm going to use those by creating them as beans. Nope, not the queue. I'm going to wait on that one because I don't know. Change pool uh, of topic. Uh, route. Oh, here's where it happens. This is where it happens. I need to give it a queue. Change. And this I'm going to bind the button. Man, I don't know this keyboard. So slightly different approach. So now when I bind, I'm going to give it, I could give it the exact same routing key, right? That should be fine. But I don't have a queue, right? And I think that this is going to work just fine. Uh, it's going to work. So I had to bind to a queue on this side, but I think, uh, like, hey, I didn't identify a queue. I think there's a default, maybe. I didn't identify a queue on this side, and maybe I needed to. But we're going to see, right? We're here. We're doing it live. Uh, Back to the right in our processor. So here's what I think is happening. I think that this is going to start up and it's going to bind to Rabbit on that same exchange and routing key. It's also binding to a queue, but I haven't talked about the queues yet. And I think that's going to work. Then what it's going to do down here, and I don't do hi. do this right here. Container dot set queue names. Let's just make that a thing for consistency. Let's make it a thing. Here. And let's just do it like the others for consistency, right? Even though I'm not sure if I need it for this example, but as I say that, I don't know exactly what that implementation is doing if I don't put it in there. So we'll see. Cool. Implemented, done. We'll change this. That's something I definitely need to figure out and understand. So let's plug that in. Cool. Um, and then once we bind to that, I'm listening. And when I find a message, when I see a message, what I'm going to do is grab that web client that's connected to. Oh, we don't have a URI yet, so this we can't really do. But what I know that we can do is by default it's running on 8080. This one's going to have to run on 8081 so that it doesn't conflict with our first example that's still uh, uh, not running, but we can make it run. Checking. I can't see. Hey, um, I'm trying to read these questions, uh, but it's a question around recommendations for uh, automating string batch testing for production. For example, if you have a specific set of input files, expect this is a rather large one. I'm going to try to read it, but it's there. Hey, string batch testing for production. Examples: if you have a specific set of input files and expect the file outputs adhere to specific business logic, and you have several of them, let's say 40 such unique batches. I once thought of Spring Cucumber integration, but it might be overkill. Any thoughts? I want to know more about this. Uh, we're trying to automate Spring batch testing for production. And you've got a bunch of input files and expect the file outputs to match some business logic. And you've got several of these, like several different rules, several different specifications, is my question. But you've got these different batches. How would I do that? How would I do that? This is a, I think it maybe falls in line. Like, hey, I'm going to go and pull those input files. Let's say that that's the same. We'll just make that change, right? Input files for batching. And once I get those files, what do I want to do with those? I'm going to send them to some instead of, yeah, I could throw them on a queue. Like, hey, go do these things in my batch system that is going to process those. We want those to match to some specific business logic. What I could do is as I do my processing and I send that data, that message sync, this could be the validator, right? Uh, just like as an example. But I'm wondering, is the question around testing or validating this process? Are you trying to do this as part of your test loop, or are you trying to do this as part of like, hey, I want to make sure that when my things are being processed, that the output is valid? Says, yeah, by several batches, I mean, oops, different use cases catering to different domains. Yeah. automated batch testing. So would this be a valid approach to say that, hey, I'm going to do my processing and I'm going to send that large file. Typically we're using those batching systems when, yeah, it's something that's going to consume a lot of resources and take a lot of time. I'll be honest, when I hear batching, I always get a little bit nervous because I have this feeling, this experience where there was in my history. I'm sure there's use cases where this doesn't matter or doesn't match, but in my history, it was always better to have real time. I want those things to be processed as they become available, so that the batch concept uh, still doing the similar, transform and send it out kind of thing, but as they become available instead of waiting until I have some uh, mass backlog that needs to be batched done as a batch. Spring batch is awesome, and there's definitely an approach. But for a recommendation off the top of my head, this is the kind of example where I can't read the name. Uh, Arpon, I think. Uh, this is the kind of example. I'm going to have you send me an email. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat. Uh, and I can't even read if I'm typing that right. Boom. See, like there it is. It's in the chat. Like just like the one that we're working on today, we want you to succeed. And I say we as our entire team, as our entire org, all of us want you to be successful. We think that we can help. Send me your question as much as you care to share. Send it. This is just an email that we got from somebody else, just like you, and they're just asking questions, and that's absolutely okay. If if you can describe it in a way, the better you can describe it, the better we can help. Uh, Happy to help. And yeah, this is this is part of what we do. This is what we want to do. Want to help you along the way. And I think it's safe to say that you're probably not the only person that's had these kinds of questions. And if we don't have an example that I can point you to already, I'm happy to run through an example just like we're doing today. So hopefully that helps. So I'm going to jump back. My initializer's up. My processor is going to run on 8081, but my processor doesn't have a URI, so we can give it one. Um, it's going to be a local host, and we'll say 8082, and that's where we're going to dump our stuff into the sink. We're not going to run this yet. Um, yeah, we're not going to run this yet. Let's go and create the sync part. We're going to do the same thing. Let's go to start.spring.io. Maven, Java. We're using Spring Boot 3, Milestone 3. It's going to be our sync. Cool, cool, cool. It's a jar. Yep. It does not need Rabbit. Of course, I want to keep the actuator. Yeah, let's do it reactive. And that's it. Actually, let's do this as a function as well. And then I know when, actually, I'll show it to you. When we add as a function, and actually, I don't know this off the top of my head either. When I add it as a function previously, it would add that generic Spring Cloud function context. But I know that I like it to be a reactive function, and I don't think, or I should probably take a look. Uh, I don't think there's any other type. Right? Um, no other way. There's no way for me to say that function web starter versus function web flux starter. So I'm going to just leave it as this, and just know that hey, I need to do that. Um, but actually, if I do this, web, reactive web, does it give me, because I used reactive web and the function? Does it give me the reactive? It gives me spring cloud function web instead of that context. That's interesting. Um, yeah, but we'll go with it. We're gonna leave it just like that. Let's download that and see what we get. We're having fun. We're exploring. Boop. Um, we got another package. This time, this one should be the easiest one, right? All it's doing is accepting some data. Um, doesn't need any. It's not gonna have a web client, so it's not calling out to anybody. It's just gonna literally accept some data. Uh, I am curious about the starter web function, but we'll see. So this this data that we get. Oh, let's take a look at that. What's the data going to look like? The data that we get here, it looks like this. So I'm going to copy this because I'm going to go build some stuff. Um, I'm going to put that right here. Let's look at it while I'm doing my stuff. This is what the data is going to look like because we just pulled it off of that API, right? We called out to this API. We didn't change it. We didn't do anything. We called out to the API. This is the response that we got. And when we did that, I'm just going to go and check my work here. Uh, that response, we grabbed it, we convert it to a mono, right? And then we subscribed to that string and we just did a string. And we said, hey, grab that string and plop it on to this. And again, we didn't put a queue name there. We just said, hey, plop it on. I'm wondering if I can do a specific queue here. It's got the routing key. I'm wondering if, yeah, I don't see it, but we're going to figure it out. That's all it did. So it didn't convert anything. And same with our processor. The processor is just saying, hey, give me that. It's formatted as a AMQP message. And we got the body of that, which is the JSON that we just saw, which is, hey, you got that. Cool. Let's post that data that you just pulled off of the queue, that you pulled off of that, out of that message. Let's post that over to this other URI. So then over here, this is what it's going to look like. So now we've got to come up with something that says, hey, here's what it's going to look like. And it's going to be a record. And that first thing is like and I'm looking here, it's got the results and the status, right? We're going to do like this. It's got a results. And status. And then that record, the results, this part, the stuff that's in here, that's going to look like this. It's got a string of sunrise, string of sunset, string of solar moon, string day length. I want all this stuff. You know what? Here, I'm not going to do it this way. Let's just send it. I don't want to deal with that just yet. Let's do this. Let's say, hey, grab that stuff. And to do that, all I need is that function. Just bring me that string. I'm not gonna convert it, and I'll tell you um, that you got it. Oh, yeah. Am I getting it right? There we go. Um, let's just say that hey, we got this value. You could do something definitely more interesting. Um, mark. Well, we could definitely do something more interesting, but for now, let's just. Uh, I think this is all I need. All I'm saying is, hey, you're going to pass in some string, and I'm going to let you know some response. Cool. Is there anything else that I need to do here? Oh yeah, I got to set my port. 8082. So uh, what we're not doing is this validating of the input, right? That we'd want to do if we were doing a batch system or other. We're just saying, hey, I just want to make sure that our dots are connected. So this is up and running, and our initializer is up and running, and our processor is not because we didn't know, or maybe we plugged it in. Yeah, we said, hey, localhost sync, that's where it's going. Uh, those are the exchanges. Now this guy should be able to stand up and run. And then I think that's the point where, as a developer, you cross your fingers, right? Maybe NW. Oh, wait, what happened here? Says, hey, starting, no profile exception, canceling refresh, unexpected exception during creation, nested exception, could not resolve placeholder queue name. Oh, did I not give it one? I sure didn't. Okay, was it that? Uh, queue name. Did I give it a queue name? Check you in the chat. Anybody remember? Did we give it a queue name? We're going to we're going to call it office hours, and maybe that's all we need. Excellent. Okay, so that's up and running. So all of our parts are up and running. Go back to our initializer, and we're going to send it some stuff that it worked before. We're going to pass in those same lat longs, but I'm actually curious that we'll do that. And oh, hey, success! Like, hey, I connected something. We're doing it. It was sent to the processor. So let's go take a look at our processor. And oh, hey, we got something. Message from RabbitMQ was sent. Did the sync? So it looks like it did its part. Like it saw a message and it did something and sent it to the sync. So let's go take a look. And on this side, I didn't get any output. Did I mean to? Wait, oh, I should have seen something. Wait, but I didn't. So what happened? What happened? What happened? So this is tricky. So let's try, right? Anything should work. I should be able to send anything here to port 8082. Um, because of the way this bean is set, this sync, oh, I should do this real quick. I want to turn on my actuators. I'm going to go copy those pieces. I believe this will work. For the sync, let's do this. let's turn on the management endpoint to just enable everything by default, and let's have it be exposed. So let's run that again. And this time, my management endpoints will be exposed. My actuator endpoints will be exposed. And we can take a look because I expect that this sync endpoint will show up. It'll be exposed. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I'm not sure. We're doing things new. We're doing it live, just like you would, right? This is the exact same thing as if we were doing this for real. Uh, Localhost 82. My actuator. I should be able to see it here on my actuator beans. And I'm looking for something called, oops, sync. Here it is. Yeah. Uh, cool. Um, what else do I got? That's just my application. Um, do something. I shouldn't have named it the same as my application because it's hard to tell. So hold on, give me a sec. I'm going to change that name. Uh, I want to consume this thing. And then look for that. And hopefully it's not there. Okay, up and running. Let's refresh. Do I have an endpoint called consume? Oh, maybe that wasn't the best choice either. But I want to see this. Yeah, I have that. So that should be open. We should be in a good shape. What's another thing that I could do? I could go and grab this data and I could run a test, and I'll do that because I think I have one. I think I had that command already. I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, so I just ran the HTTP command, sending all of those results to port 8082 to that same endpoint. It worked. It says, hey, it worked. And it did print out the value or no? Let's go take a look. Did it? Yes. So it printed out the value. So that's good. So this function is working, but when we ran the process from here, it didn't. It did not work. It said, hey, we sent it to the processor up here. It said, cool. And then when we got to the processor said, hey, we're doing this. It said, we're doing this. Post this to this web client. Let's validate what our web client is doing. This is our base URI. Our base URI is here. Oh, sync URI. Did I do that right? Yep, sync URI is our base URI. So that's what it should be generating our web client for, is that URL. And we're posting this as the body. I hope that's right. I don't know. I hope that's right. That would be the same as our example over here, right? Where we're just sitting in the string, even though it's JSON, we're just sitting in the string. Oops, in this window, I just sent in the string. I said, hey, it's raw. That's just, I'm sending you a string. I believe. I'm not really positive on that. But yeah, that's how we're going to connect the dots. I don't know why it's not connecting. I'm going to try. Am I missing anything here? Am I missing anything here? I can't think. Let me see anything. Why do you have so many beans if you create just one? Oh, that's a great question. How come I have so many beans here if I created just one? This is what you get. I left all of the auto configuration for all of those beans on. So we can take a look at some of these. And some of them are deep within the dependencies, right? It's not just me that's creating beans; those dependencies are creating beans. We've got the ones wrapped around our uh, yeah endpoint caching. We've got the ones that are out there by default. The things that are going to look for uh, our web server, our web container, how we're going to deliver either Tomcat or Netty. Also, the things around. Oops, let's take a look at our dependencies. Uh, the Rabbit, the auto configuration for all the things around Rabbit. uh, plus all the things that I delivered with the actuator itself. All of those beans are being exposed because I said, hey, expose all those beans here. And the other one, sorry, I turned it on for this guy. Hopefully that makes sense. Like, hey, why? Why do you have all those things? And we can turn those off. We can make it so it doesn't configure the things that we don't want configured, and we can optimize that, and that's one of those things that we can do if we're using Spring Boot. Let's do this. Let's, while I've got your attention, let's go and run this same thing. Uh, just we're going to do it slightly different, just to see, yeah, that I know this works. We're going to use Spring Boot 2.7.0. We're going to create another sync example, uh, and we're going to grab our actuator. We're still do a function. We're still going to do it this way. I'm going to add one more Spring Boot native, and I'm going to do that. Yeah, let's go ahead and replace it. And what I'm going to do is, yeah, I'm going to do this little cheat code. Um, let's do it this way. On sync, and then we're going to CP the sync POM to here. So now my sync project has the POM that's using Spring 2.7.0. And it's like, hey, bro, you changed it from under me. But everything else should be the same. We didn't change any of the dependencies. It's looking for a Spring native version, which should be up here. Spring native version, cool. So I've got some changes, but everything should still work together, right? Everything should still be working. So IntelliJ is doing its indexing, doing its thing. I think that everything else should be the same, right? There's no changes. And this is just good evidence that going from Spring Boot 2.7 to Spring Boot 3.0, at least the milestone 3, I didn't have to change my application. All I did was change my POM, and I know that by changing my POM file, because I'm using Spring, uh, the parent POM is going to make sure that all of my dependencies work together, and the same with the Spring Cloud version. Things are going to work together. So go ahead and just restart that. I've got the same management endpoints changed. I don't remember the point of what I wanted to see. Oh, I remember. We're going to start this up, and we're going to just take a quick little peek. So my same little application. Hey, look, it started up in 2 seconds. We're going to go back here. We're going to look at those actuator endpoints, and we're going to say, hey, I've got some stuff there still. Again, a big long list of a bunch of beans that it has created. And also the other one I like to look at, a bunch of all the endpoints for heap dump, for logging, your health, right? That's the other. Hey, I turn those things on. Yes, ping, everything works. This is excellent. Um, but I added that Spring Native. And this is the things that I'm getting from Spring Native are going to be included in Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. Clearly, I had something misconfigured when I was doing it with our other application, but I didn't have it doing any of the AOT pre-compiling stuff either. So that was probably my problem. I didn't give it any of the hints. So yeah, I probably misconfigured that. So what we're going to do here with Spring Native is I'm going to go ahead and redo this. Actually, I'm going to show one more thing. Let's do JPS, and I should get a ID for the sync application here. And that ID, let's do it this way. Oops. All right, so there's the process ID, and I'm going to use this tool, VM map, and this is on a Mac. I'm going to pass in 86695, and I'm going to look at the. I can just kind of show this here. See what we get. Cool. What that does is tell me like how much memory it's using and all the different ways it's using it. And I just did the summary. But right here, hey, this application is using 134 megs of memory. That's one way of looking at it. We also have these other numbers. But yeah, here's how much memory it's taking. Cool. Now, instead of that, the 2 second startup time and whatever, 100 and something, 134 megs of memory. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stop this guy. We're going to do it with native. So we're going to do this time clean. Way. Actually, we're going to use native clean. And I'm going to skip the test. So it doesn't take too long because again, I got a slow laptop. I'm going to jump back over here, see if there's any other questions. And we were talking about beans. And this is what we're going to take a look at. One of the other things I should have done is I should have, actually, I'm going to do it real quick. I'm going to remove the actuator. The actuator adds a bunch of stuff that we don't really need for this example. And that's all I'm going to do. So let's do that again. I removed the actuator. We were talking about beans. Why all the extra stuff? Let's remove the actuator. So we won't have visibility of those beans. But I think the question where I was going is like, oh yeah, there's a lot of extra stuff. And maybe I don't need all that extra stuff. It's just a function to listen. It's the simplest thing that we did today. Let's take a look. So now, again, this is using the Graal VM to go and do a native build. So it's going to do a static. It's going to create a binary, and that binary, the output of this process is going to be a static binary that runs on this architecture, which is a x86 or AMD 64, however you want to call it, running on the Darwin operating system. And Graal knows how to do that. And yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but as a developer, hey, I'm done with this. I don't want it to take up 134 megs of valuable memory out of my 16 gigabytes available. And that 134 megs, that was just that process. There's other stuff going on. So let's just take a look. This takes a while. Feel free to ask any other questions. I appreciate you all for joining. But this is code. This is where I'm not trying to do anything other than show you this is how I'm doing development. I'm trying to let you see, hey, we developed 3 different applications using Rabbit as our message queue, our message bus, and we did it in slightly different ways for each. We used that reactive web client. We used a message listener, and yeah, we set up some functions. I'm spending a lot of time on these functions for multiple reasons. We had questions around, why do I want to do? What if I want to move all my stuff to AWS Lambda, for example? Well, you can use Spring. You can start with Spring Cloud Functions and start to break up your app that way before deciding which cloud function runtime to land on. Yeah, explore, take a look, and see what it takes. But I appreciate you joining. I wish this was faster, but on a 16 gig laptop that's also uh, hosting the session, the Zoom here, or not the Zoom, the stream. Yeah, it goes quite a bit slower when I'm streaming than it does uh, when I'm not. So this isn't what you should be expecting when you're doing this development locally, but it does take a while. But also, I do the same thing uh, on my Raspberry Pi. I can create those static images, those static binaries, and I can run them on my Raspberry Pi. I can completely move those services off to another device that only cost me $35 to create, and I get the same output thanks to the Growl VM. So this is the last thing I want to do, and then I'll wrap it up for the day. But it just takes a long time on this laptop, which is why we don't do this during our normal development loop, right? When I was working on the initializer, I tried to do the same thing. I said, "Hey, I'm done with the initializer. Let me." What I would ideally do is say, "Hey, uh, kick off that process that goes and builds that image in the background. I'm done. I've committed my changes. Go build that image." And I would rather have that static image that's built for that smaller footprint. It's using Graal VM to the ahead of time compilation, so I can have a smaller footprint of not just the image, but also of the memory it consumes, and run that locally. And maybe not even run it all the time locally. I want it to scale to 0 when I'm not using it. As of right now, the initializer, I'm not using it right now. It's up and running. It's also, let's take a look. It's also consuming memory. APS. Uh, there's that process ID. 572. It's also taking memory. Let's scoot up here. And I'm just looking at the physical memory. I don't know if I'm looking at the right stuff here. Uh, where was it? 157 megs. Right. So you can see if I get to working on too many of these, that can be pretty big. That can get pretty expensive uh, when I'm trying to do development locally, right? I've got 3 of those. Let's look, might as well look at the other one while that process is still going. Oh, that's almost done, but we can quickly jump over to the processor just while we're spending time here. Again, I'm using the JPS command, which is identifying the Java processes. And I'm looking for, uh, this is the process name. It'll be processor. And that'll give me the process ID right there. And the map summary 4848557. Oops, 57. And yeah, cool. 126 megs. So yeah, that's non-trivial. That's a good chunk of stuff. Let's see if our other is done. Our sync. Hey, it says I spent a lot of time here. Oh, and I'm running out of memory. Oh, I get it. See, I totally get it. But if I was running those things, we can probably stop those for now. Uh, let's go ahead and shut these guys down. The Graal VM does take a lot of resources to do its thing. So let's stop these other services. And in fact, I can go ahead and stop since we're wrapping up. I'll shut down my IDE. Uh, maybe, maybe not. Let's go do the same for the processor. Yeah, the stream. and the Growl VM and all the stuff. Excellent. This has to be getting close. This is not normal, but like I said, we're doing the streaming as well. Hopefully, giving you a few more resources will help that speed up. I'm looking. So somebody says, "Oh, Arpon for spring. We are actually in the process of evaluating Rabbit and Kafka. Do you have any preference for normal workloads without streaming data? Which one probably works better in most use cases?" Uh, that is, I think, a good question. Oops. Um, yeah, even this. Um, I'm defaulting to Rabbit. I've got experience with Rabbit. Rabbit works really well. Um, Kafka, they are typically there's a lot of overlap between the two, but there's typically sweet spots. So when you say normal workloads, uh, that makes me ask more questions. But since you're already writing me an email, feel free to fill that in too. Like these are questions that a lot of people have. You have lots of options for streaming data. But if you're not streaming data, yeah, you just queues, right? You can use both of these for just queues and other use cases as well. There's tons of ways to use the things that are on the menu. I think that the most important thing is what does the rest of your company want to support, right? If you're going to evaluate a RabbitMQ versus a Kafka, what are the things that you're considering? And when you do figure out what's your winners and your losers, I think you should also consider like what does it take to get trained up? How are you going to train the team that supports those services, that infrastructure that's running your Kafka or Rabbit? Make sure that you're not just saying, "Hey, I got this workload, I got this feature working." Make sure that, hey, now that you've developed it, like we've done on our laptop, make sure that it's got a place to run. I am lucky because I know the guys that are developing Rabbit, and I've got plenty of support around that. So I have 100% confidence that if I want to take what we worked on today, take it to production, that I've got the support that I need, and I can get good feedback on better ways to deliver this to production. We have normal processing stuff to do after splitting up the data and calling different APIs, depending on the data read from upstream. Yeah, yeah, you can absolutely like. Don't be afraid. You don't have to be vanilla. If you've got some other uh, team using Kafka, if that Kafka stream is internal, it sounds like you might already have support for Kafka, which is a great thing to have, right? If you're going to evaluate taking something to production, Kafka, it's already in the building. If Rabbit's not also in the building, yeah, maybe that's your choice. But if they're both in the building and they're both supported platforms, yeah, then maybe you've got some more questions to ask. But yeah, I've seen many very interesting use cases for both. Let's take a look. Good question. Now, hey, cool. I've got this application. Let's take a look at it. It's here. Let's do it this way. Um, cool. So the image itself is 62 megs. Let's see if I can run that. Uh, now, the first thing that you'll notice is it started up a whole lot faster. So that negotiation that we just made was that startup time, where before it was 2 seconds just to start up. Here it was 1/10 of a second to start up. That's a pretty significant change, and it's even faster. That number is even smaller when I'm not doing all the other things. So huge improvement. And if you can imagine, well, let's take a look and see if we can uh, find that process ID because it's not a Java process anymore. It's a static binary. We got to find that sync. And there it is. So there's our process ID. And then we can still do the VM map for that process ID, 88889. And let's see. Um, that's a pretty significant difference, 18.2 megs um, versus the 134 megs. And then we also saw the startup time was uh, two 2 seconds. Let's go back here. Uh, oh, that was all that. Are we gonna get it? Yeah, here. Uh, 2+ seconds down to a tenth of a second. So that's a pretty significant change. So this developer experience, it would be nice. It would have been nice after I developed that initializer. The first thing that we did after I developed it, it would have been nice to kick off some process and say, hey, go ahead and build that natively uh, compiled image using GraalVM. Build that and share that with my developers. Share that with Alexander. Share that with RPen, and so that they can do development. And if we're all using Tanzu, the Tanzu Community Edition, we can set it up as a workload, and I could have the initializer, the message processor, the message sync. I can have all those things, even the Rabbit. I can have all those running on my local Kubernetes cluster, but scaled to 0, so that as I'm doing development on the message sync, my initializer is actually not even running. And because it starts up so fast, it's okay. When I run my test, my HTTP pie, hey, go call it. Knative serving says, oh, you're trying to call one of my other workloads. I know how to handle that, and it stands it up really quick. And you can keep on going, just like it was running, but you can continue to do your thing without having all the things consuming resources, without them consuming hundreds of megabytes. They're not even consuming the 18 megabytes because they get scaled to 0. They're deployed as images, OCI compliant images that Kubernetes can handle. So they wouldn't even be consuming those 18 gigs or megs of memory. But when you make a call, it'll start up fast and it'll consume much less memory. And you can imagine, just in this case, I could fit 10 of these workloads and I could have them up and running statically compiled. And this ability of doing the static compilation is one of the big benefits of what we're going to see in Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. All the things that GraalVM needs in order to develop a tight, small footprint, fast, static image are baked in with Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. And that's why I'm excited. So this was fun. This is a good exercise. I think that this is what we're going to be seeing going forward. Uh, I hope that you can see that we probably don't want to wait for that GraalVM to do its compilation while we're doing development locally, but you do need to test that GraalVM image. Make sure that you're hitting all of the things. This is why I make the statement that the more mature your testing is, the better this new approach, this new way of doing things with GraalVM is going to be for you. And we touched on that a little bit here today. Um, One of the things that I will take away from today is that I need to make sure I'm building those native images the right way with Spring Boot 3. And I'm going to bring that information back to an upcoming office hours or an upcoming code session. So please join us again. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the good questions. If you're paying attention, I provided my email. Like, I want to know what's going on, but you don't have to have my email. You can find us on Twitter. There's Stack Overflow. We have all the great content in our Spring Guides and Tanzu Developer Center. So please, join. It's a great time to be a developer using Spring and Tanzu, and hopefully you can kind of see what I'm getting excited about, even with the little stuff that we did today. So thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.